There is a moment almost no one talks about. Not the start, not the victory, but the quiet second right before everything clicks. You feel stuck, restless, even betrayed by your own effort. You did the work. You stayed disciplined. Yet the breakthrough refuses to arrive. This is where most people quit. And this is exactly where Stoic wisdom begins. The Stoics warned that force creates resistance. Chasing clarity only pushes it farther away. Real change happens when you stop arguing with reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your suffering is not caused by events, but by the meaning you assign to them. Change the judgment, and the world rearranges itself instantly. This video is not motivating. It is a mirror. If you are calm enough to see clearly, honest enough to let go, wise and disciplined enough to stay still, this will be the moment everything finally makes sense. Stay present now and do not rush past what is unfolding here. Part 1. The hidden frustration. Right before the breakthrough. There is a specific kind of frustration that doesn't come from laziness, ignorance, or lack of effort. It comes from being close. Close to understanding, close to change, close to becoming someone you can finally respect. And that closeness is unbearable. You wake up with a strange heaviness, not despair, something sharper. You're not lost anymore, but you're not free either. You've outgrown your old mindset, yet the new one hasn't fully settled in. This is the most dangerous phase of growth, because on the surface, it feels like nothing is happening. Inside, however, everything is rearranging. You question yourself more than ever. Your old habits no longer comfort you. The distractions that once numbed the noise now feel empty, even irritating. You start to feel impatient with advice. Motivational words bounce off you. You don't want hype, you want truth. And the truth is this. Right before a breakthrough, the mind experiences resistance. Not resistance from the world, but from within. Your ego senses a shift coming. It knows that once clarity arrives, certain illusions won't survive. Certain excuses will no longer work. Certain identities will have to die, so it tightens its grip. It tells you, try harder, consume more, fix yourself faster. But this voice is not guiding you forward. It's trying to keep you familiar. The Stoics understood this pattern deeply. They observed that the mind resists change not when it is failing, but when it is about to see clearly. Because clarity removes negotiation. Once you see, you can't unsee. Once you understand, and you are responsible. That's why this phase feels so uncomfortable. You're no longer ignorant enough to feel safe, but not yet grounded enough to feel calm. You exist in between. And most people mistake this state as a sign to quit. They say, this isn't working. This philosophy doesn't apply to me. I need something new. So they jump. They reset. They distract themselves again. And the moment passes. But if you stay, if you endure this quiet pressure without trying to escape it, something subtle begins to happen. You stop reacting as quickly. You start observing your thoughts instead of obeying them. You notice how often you argue with reality instead of responding to it. You realize how much of your suffering comes not from what is, but from what you think should be. And this realization is unsettling, because it removes the villain. There's no one left to blame, no dramatic obstacle to fight, only perception to adjust. That's why this moment feels empty to many. There's no adrenaline here, no applause, just honesty, and honesty is quiet. You begin to see patterns instead of events. You notice how the same emotional reactions repeat in different situations. Different people, same trigger. Different days, same internal dialogue. This is not a coincidence. This is conditioning. And once you see it, frustration slowly transforms. It becomes clarity in waiting. You start to understand that effort was never the missing piece. Awareness was. Not more doing, more seeing. This is why forcing progress feels wrong now. Your system is asking for alignment, not acceleration. The Stoic approach here is simple, but not easy. Do not interfere with the process. Do not rush to label this phase as failure. Do not anesthetize it with noise. Do not abandon it for comfort. Sit with the tension, because this tension is not trying to crush you. It is trying to refine you. Steel is not strengthened by constant motion, but by pressure applied at the right moment. This is that moment. You don't need a new strategy right now. You need restraint. Restraint from reacting. Restraint from explaining yourself. Restraint from searching for reassurance. Let the mind settle. Let the false urgency pass. Because right before everything clicks, life often feels strangely still, as if it's waiting to see whether you'll trust the process or run back to what's familiar. If you're here, feeling this friction, you are not behind. You're closer than you think. And what comes next doesn't require more force, only the courage to stop fighting what already is. Part 2. Why more effort is not the answer. When things stop working, your instinct is to push harder, to wake up earlier, to grind more, to consume another book, another video, another strategy. You've been trained to believe that effort solves everything, but there comes a point, quiet, uncomfortable, easy to miss, where more effort doesn't move you forward. It keeps you stuck. This is the paradox most people never understand. In the early stages of growth, effort creates momentum. You show up, you discipline yourself, you build habits, and results follow. But right before a true internal shift, effort changes roles. It stops being fuel and starts becoming friction. You don't feel this immediately. At first, you just feel tired, then irritated, then strangely resistant to things that once inspired you. And you begin to feel like you're pushing against something invisible. That something is not life resisting you. It's you resisting reality. The Stoics warned about this exact trap. They observed that suffering intensifies when a person tries to control what no longer requires control. When the mind insists on forcing clarity instead of allowing it. At this stage, effort becomes a way to avoid seeing. You stay busy so you don't have to sit still. You optimize so you don't have to reflect. You chase improvement so you don't have to confront misalignment. More effort feels productive. But sometimes it's just disguised avoidance. Ask yourself honestly, are you working harder because it's necessary? Or because slowing down scares you? Because slowing down removes excuses. When you stop pushing, you can no longer say, I haven't tried enough. You're left with a harder question. What if the issue isn't effort at all? This is where most people panic. They confuse stillness with stagnation. They confuse restraint with weakness. They confuse subtraction with quitting. So they double down. They tighten their schedule. They add more rules. They demand more discipline from an already exhausted mind. And the resistance grows. Here is the Stoic correction that changes everything. Clarity comes from reduction, not accumulation. Not more goals, fewer conflicts, not more information, less noise, not more pressure, more precision. Think about the moments in your life when things truly clicked, not gradually, but instantly. A realization that arrived fully formed, a decision that suddenly felt obvious, in a shift that didn't require motivation, only acceptance. Those moments didn't come from effort. They came from alignment, from finally seeing what you were already doing and choosing to stop. Stop arguing with reality. Stop justifying misaligned paths. Stop forcing outcomes that no longer fit who you're becoming. This is why trying harder feels wrong right now. Your inner system is not asking for intensity. It's asking for honesty. Honesty about what drains you. Honesty about what no longer matters. Honesty about what you've outgrown but keep carrying out of habit. And honesty is heavy at first, because it removes the fantasy that one more push will fix everything. It won't. The Stoics were not passive. They were precise. They knew when to act, and when action would only reinforce confusion. At this stage, one's effort must change form. Not outward force, but inward restraint. Restraint from reacting emotionally. Restraint from chasing validation. Restraint from filling silence with stimulation. You don't need to add another system to your life. You need to remove what's distorting your vision. That might mean fewer opinions, less scrolling, less explaining yourself, less rehearsing imaginary battles in your head. When you subtract noise, something uncomfortable happens. You start to feel exposed. Without distraction, your real priorities surface. Without busyness, misalignment becomes obvious. Without constant effort, truth has space to speak. This is why many people run from this phase. They mistake discomfort for danger. But this discomfort is not a signal to push harder. It's a signal to listen more carefully. Because right before everything clicks, life stops responding to force. It responds to clarity. And clarity is quiet. It doesn't demand. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It waits. If you feel like more effort is only making you tense, if discipline feels sharp instead of grounding, if motivation feels forced instead of natural, that's not a failure of character. That's a sign you're ready for a different kind of strength. The strength to pause, the strength to remove, the strength to trust that not everything requires effort to be resolved. Some things resolve the moment you stop interfering with them, and what comes next doesn't arrive through pressure, but through the courage to stop pushing and finally see what has been there all along. Part 3. The moment you stop fighting reality. There is a precise instant when everything begins to shift. Not outwardly, but internally. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dramatic. In fact, it often feels like surrender. This is the moment you stop fighting reality. Up until now, much of your energy has been spent resisting what is. Resisting the pace of your progress. Resisting the lessons hidden inside discomfort. Resisting the truth that some things cannot be forced, rushed, or negotiated. You may not have realized it, but the tension you've been carrying wasn't caused by hardship itself. It was caused by your argument with it. The Stoics were clear about this. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering begins the moment you demand that reality be different than it is. You tell yourself, this shouldn't be happening. I should be further by now. This isn't fair. And with every should, you tighten the knot. The breakthrough doesn't arrive when circumstances change. It arrives when resistance dissolves. This is where the Stoic concept of amor fati, love of fate, becomes more than philosophy. It becomes practice, not passive acceptance, not resignation, but a disciplined willingness to meet reality without resentment. When you stop fighting reality, something unexpected happens. Your energy returns. Not because life suddenly improves, but because you're no longer wasting strength arguing with what you cannot control. You begin to see situations clearly instead of emotionally. You stop personalizing events that were never personal. You stop turning neutral facts into internal attacks. This is not a weakness, it is mastery. The mind becomes calm not when it gets what it wants, but when it stops demanding what it cannot have. And calmness is dangerous in the best way, because from calmness comes precision. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of chase. You act without inner conflict. Most people never experience this shift because they mistake acceptance for defeat. They believe that letting go means losing. The Stoics understood the opposite. You lose power only when you resist reality. Fighting reality keeps you locked in the past, replaying events, rehearsing arguments, imagining different outcomes. Acceptance pulls you into the present, and the present is where clarity lives. This is the moment when things start to click, not because you figured everything out, but because the noise finally quiets enough for insight to surface. You realize you don't need closure from people who couldn't give it. You don't need validation from environments you've outgrown. You don't need certainty to move forward. Only alignment. This realization often feels anticlimactic. There's no rush of adrenaline, no victory music, just a deep internal, okay. Okay, this happened. Okay, this is where I am. Okay, this is what I control and what I don't. And within that, okay, something solid forms. You stop leaking energy into regret. You stop borrowing anxiety from the future. You stop explaining yourself to imaginary judges. You stand where you are, fully. The Stoics trained for this moment daily. They rehearsed loss so it wouldn't break them. They examined their judgments so emotions wouldn't rule them. Not to become cold, but to become free. When you stop fighting reality, you don't become passive. You become efficient. You stop wasting time wishing. You start working with what is. You make better decisions because they're no longer fueled by fear or ego. You choose smaller, cleaner actions. You move quietly, without needing approval. This is why this moment feels like relief mixed with seriousness, because you sense responsibility returning. No one else to blame, no illusion left to hide behind. Just you, your choices, and the present moment. And strangely, that's comforting, because for the first time in a long while, you're not scattered across past mistakes and future fantasies. You're here, fully. This is the foundation of Stoic strength, not dominance over the world, but harmony with reality. But once this harmony is established, clarity doesn't need to be chased anymore. It arrives naturally, because nothing blocks it now. No resistance, no argument, no inner war. Just a calm, grounded awareness that whatever comes next, you will meet it without flinching. And that is when everything truly begins to click. Part 4. The identity shift nobody talks about. When things finally begin to click, the most important change is not external. It's not your job, not your routine, not your circumstances. It's your identity. And this shift is quiet enough that many people miss it. For a long time, your identity has been built around effort. The one who tries harder. The one who pushes through. The one who survives by force of will. That identity helped you grow, but it cannot take you further, because the next stage doesn't ask for more strength. It asks for less noise. This is the part nobody prepares you for. You don't become more intense. You become more simple. You stop chasing versions of yourself you imagined in moments of insecurity. You stop proving things to people who were never paying attention. And you stop needing every action to validate your worth. And this can feel disorienting, because when striving falls away, silence appears. And silence forces a question you may have avoided. If I'm no longer chasing, who am I now? This is where the identity shift begins. The Stoics didn't define themselves by outcomes. They defined themselves by alignment, by how they responded, by how they judged events, by how consistently they acted in accordance with their values. Not louder, not more visible, just more grounded. As this shift takes place, certain behaviors start to feel unnatural. Over-explaining drains you. Seeking reassurance feels hollow. Reacting emotionally feels unnecessary. You notice yourself pausing more, observing more, choosing fewer words, fewer actions, but better ones. And people around you may feel this change before you do. Some will call it distance, others will call it coldness. A few will feel unsettled without knowing why, because your energy has changed. You're no longer broadcasting insecurity through constant motion. You are no longer negotiating your value through effort. You're simply present. This is not detachment from life. It is detachment from illusion. From the illusion that doing more makes you more. from the illusion that being seen makes you solid, from the illusion that control comes from force. The new identity doesn't need constant reinforcement. It doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It chooses. This is where many people become uncomfortable. Not with you, but with themselves. Because when you stop reacting, their patterns are exposed. When you stop chasing, their need for control becomes visible. When you stop explaining, their assumptions have nowhere to land, and this can create distance. But this distance is not lost. It's clarity. You begin to realize that much of your past effort was not about growth. It was about avoiding discomfort, avoiding stillness, avoiding uncertainty, avoiding the responsibility that comes with seeing clearly. Now that you see, you cannot unsee. You no longer identify as someone on the way. You identify as someone here with reality, here with choice, here with consequence. This identity doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need to be understood. It is internally anchored. And with that anchoring comes a subtle seriousness. Not heaviness, but weight. The weight of knowing that your actions matter because they are chosen consciously. The weight of understanding that peace is maintained, not found. The weight of integrity. This is why the shift feels both freeing and demanding. Freedom because you're no longer chasing approval. Demanding because you can no longer lie to yourself. The Stoics embraced this. They didn't aim to feel good. They aimed to be good, in alignment with reality. As this identity settles, you may notice fewer dramatic highs, but also fewer devastating lows. Your emotions flatten, not from numbness, but from stability. You become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, harder to rush, and easier to trust by yourself. This is the identity that emerges right before everything clicks. Not the conqueror, not the hero, but the steward of his own mind. And once this shift is complete, progress no longer feels forced. Because it's no longer about becoming someone else. It's about acting consistently as who you already are. Quiet, clear, grounded. From this place, the next steps don't require motivation. They require honesty. And honesty, once established, becomes the most stable identity a person can carry forward. Part 5. Why this moment only comes. Once there is a reason this moment feels fragile. The reason is that it feels like a narrow window instead of a permanent state. Because it is. The moment when everything begins to click does not repeat itself endlessly. It doesn't wait patiently while you hesitate. It doesn't chase you if you turn away. It arrives once, quietly, and asks a single question. Will you live from what you now see, or will you retreat back to what feels familiar? This is where many people lose the path. Not because they fail, but because they hesitate. Clarity is demanding in a way confusion never is. Confusion lets you delay. Clarity removes excuses. Once you see clearly, you can no longer say, "I didn't know. I wasn't ready. I needed more time." You know, you see, and now you must choose. And this is why the moment feels heavy. It carries responsibility. The Stoics warned about this too. They understood that insight, once gained, becomes a burden if not acted upon. Not because action must be immediate, but because retreat has consequences. When you glimpse alignment and then return to misalignment, the discomfort doesn't disappear. It deepens. You try to go back to old habits, but they no longer soothe you. You return to old distractions, but they feel hollow. You repeat old patterns, but now you're aware of them. And awareness without action turns into self-betrayal. That is why some people become bitter after moments of insight. Not because clarity hurt them, but because they ignored it. This is what makes the moment rare. Not that it doesn't come again, but that never comes the same way. The first time, it was gentle. It whispers. It says, "You already know what matters." You already see what must change. You don't need to force this, just align. If you ignore it, the whisper doesn't repeat itself politely. Life escalates. The next lessons are louder, more uncomfortable, less forgiving, not as punishment, but as a consequence. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. Reality corrects misalignment, not emotionally, not personally, mechanically. This is why many people feel like life gets harder after moments of clarity they don't honor. They mistake consequence for cruelty, but life is not cruel. It is precise. When you know better and do not act better, inner conflict begins. You start feeling restless without knowing why, irritated by small things, disconnected from things that once excited you. And this is not depression, it is friction between insight and behavior. And that friction doesn't resolve by pretending you didn't see what you saw. This is why the moment only comes once in this form. It is an invitation, not a guarantee. An opening, not a contract. If you step through it, your life simplifies. If you step away from it, your life complicates. Not dramatically, gradually. This is where comfort becomes dangerous. Comfort offers you an escape hatch. It says, just rest, just wait, just go back to what you know. And comfort is persuasive because it feels harmless. But comfort at this stage is not rest, it is retreat. The Stoics were ruthless about this distinction. They believed that ease chosen at the wrong moment weakens character more than hardship ever could. Because hardship tests you, comfort dissolves you. This doesn't mean you must act loudly or radically. It means you must act honestly. Quiet changes count. Internal commitments matter. You don't need to announce anything. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight, but you do need to stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending you don't know what drains you. Stop pretending certain paths are still viable. Stop pretending you'll get to it later. Later is the illusion that kills clarity. This moment is not asking for perfection, it's asking for alignment. One decision that matches what you now understand. One boundary you no longer negotiate. One habit you quietly let go of. That is enough to honor the moment. Because when clarity is honored, it stays, it matures, it deepens, it turns into stability. But when clarity is ignored, it doesn't vanish, it hardens. It becomes regret. And regret is clarity that came too late. This is why the moment feels urgent without being dramatic. Why does it feel calm yet serious? Why does it feel like something is at stake even though nothing is visibly happening? Something is at stake. Your integrity with yourself. And once that integrity is either claimed or compromised, the path ahead changes permanently. That is why this moment only comes once. Not because life is unfair, but because life respects awareness. And awareness, once granted, expects you to live as if you truly saw. What you choose now does not need to be loud, but it does need to be real. Because from this point forward, you are no longer moving in the dark. You are moving with your eyes open. And that changes everything. Part 6. What to do when it clicks. When clarity finally arrives, the greatest danger is not confusion, it's overreaction. Many people make the mistake of turning insight into impulse. They want to announce it, explain it, prove it, act on everything at once. But Stoic clarity does not ask for drama. It asks for discipline. When things click, the correct response is not speed, it is precision. This is the moment where quiet action matters more than visible action. Because clarity is fragile at first. Like a newly sharpened blade, it can be dulled easily if handled carelessly. The Stoics understood this. They believed that insight must be protected before it is expressed. So what do you do when it clicks? First, you reduce noise. Not just external noise, but mental noise. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. So you stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop seeking confirmation that your realization is correct. Clarity does not need witnesses. In fact, the more you talk about it, the more you dilute it. This is why the Stoics valued silence, not as withdrawal, but as preservation. Silence keeps the insight intact long enough to become action. Second, you narrow your focus. When clarity arrives, many paths suddenly look irrelevant. Things you once obsessed over lose their grip. Arguments you rehearsed endlessly no longer feel worth having. This is not apathy, it is prioritization. The mistake here is trying to fix everything at once. Clarity doesn't demand total transformation. It demands correct sequencing, one thing at a time, one adjustment that aligns behavior with insight. Ask yourself one simple question. What is the smallest action that honors what I now see? Not the most impressive, not the most dramatic, the cleanest. This might mean removing one habit instead of adding 3, ending one draining commitment instead of starting a new project, creating one boundary instead of giving a speech. Stoic action is surgical. Third, you commit quietly. This is where real change separates itself from performance. You do not announce your discipline. You do not broadcast your growth. You do not seek validation for choices that only you must live with. Quiet commitment builds internal strength. Because when no one is watching, integrity becomes real. The Stoics trained themselves to act the same, whether observed or not. They believed character was what remained when applause was removed. And this is especially important after a moment of clarity, because the ego will try to reclaim control. It will suggest turning insight into identity. It will tempt you to become the person who figured it out. That path leads backward. Clarity is not an identity. It is a responsibility, and responsibility requires consistency, not recognition. There is another subtle danger here: urgency. You may feel a strong pull to capitalize on the moment, to make sweeping changes before the feeling fades. But Stoic discipline is not reactive. It understands that true clarity does not rush. If the insight is real, it will still be there tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. So instead of rushing, you stabilize. You simplify your schedule. You protect your mornings or evenings. You create space for reflection instead of filling it with stimulation. This is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming deliberate. You begin to align your environment with your clarity. Less exposure to what distracts you, more access to what grounds you. You don't need a perfect system. You need fewer contradictions. And finally, you practice restraint. Restraint from reacting emotionally. Restraint from proving yourself. Restraint from slipping back into familiar chaos. This is where most people falter, because restraint feels passive to a culture addicted to motion. But restraint is active control. It is choosing not to respond, choosing not to engage, choosing not to reopen doors you just closed internally. Every time you practice restraint, clarity deepens. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less of what distorts you. The Stoics believed freedom was found not in unlimited action, but in the ability to choose one's response. This is the real work after it clicks. Not excitement, not ambition, but alignment, repeated quietly. Over time, this quiet discipline produces a powerful effect. Your actions become cleaner. Your decisions require less deliberation. Your emotional reactions lose intensity, not because you suppress them, but because they no longer control you. You begin to trust yourself again, and that trust is the real reward of clarity. Not certainty about the future, not answers to every question, but confidence in your ability to respond well no matter what comes. This is how clarity turns into stability. This is how insight becomes character. And this is why the moment matters. Because what you do after it clicks determines whether it becomes a turning point or just another realization that faded into memory. Act quietly. Choose precisely. Commit without performance. And let your life, not your words, prove that something truly shifted. Right before everything clicks, life does not demand more effort from you. It asks for honesty, restraint, and alignment. In this video, you've seen how frustration before clarity is not failure, why forcing progress creates resistance, how acceptance dissolves in a conflict, and how a quiet identity shift changes everything. You learned that this moment comes only once, and that what matters most is how you respond after it arrives. Now the work is simple, but not easy. Reduce noise. Narrow your focus. Commit quietly. Choose one small action today that honors what you now understand. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today. Let your discipline be silent, and let consistency do the speaking. If this message resonated, don't just agree with it. Practice it. Sit with stillness. Observe your reactions. Act with precision instead of urgency. That is how clarity becomes strength. Thank you for spending this time with me and walking this Stoic path together. If you're ready to live what you've seen, stay close. More lessons are coming, and I'll see you in the next video very soon ahead now.